In a quiet village nestled between tall green mountains and golden rice fields, there lived a young man named Harry. The village was a peaceful place, with clear streams that sparkled under the sun and fields that stretched far into the distance. The air smelled of fresh earth, and the sound of flowing water was never far away. Harry grew up surrounded by hard-working people who cared deeply for one another. They shared meals, helped with chores, and looked out for each other like a big family. But from the time Harry was a small boy, he was taught one important rule: make others happy. Do what they say, follow their advice, and everyone will love you. This rule was like a heavy rock Harry carried on his shoulders every day. His parents told him to study farming, so he learned about planting rice and tending crops, even though he loved something else entirely. As a child, Harry would sit in the dirt with a stick, drawing shapes of birds, rivers, and mountains. His fingers would trace swirling patterns, creating little worlds in the soil. But he kept this secret because drawing wasn't practical, and he didn't want to disappoint his parents. His teachers told him to memorize lessons about crops, seasons, and tools, so he studied hard, even though his mind wandered to poems he made up in his head. The words would dance in his thoughts, beautiful and free, but he never wrote them down. When neighbors said, "Work hard, Harry, don't waste time daydreaming," he listened. He worked harder, stayed quiet, and buried his dreams deep inside where no one could see them. The people in the village loved Harry. "What a good boy," they said. "Harry always listens. He never argues. He does exactly what he's told." On the outside, Harry smiled and nodded, his face calm and polite. But on the inside, he felt hollow, like an empty jar that could never be filled. No matter how much he did for others, helping in the fields, fixing fences, or carrying heavy loads, that empty feeling stayed with him. It was like a shadow that followed him everywhere. As he grew older, the emptiness grew heavier, pressing on his chest like a stone. He wondered why he felt so lost, even though he was doing everything right. At night, lying on a mat under the bamboo roof of his small house, Harry would stare at the ceiling and whisper to himself, "I've followed all their rules. I've made everyone happy. So why do I feel so empty? Why does it feel like my life belongs to someone else?" He didn't have an answer, and the question haunted him. In the morning, he'd put on his usual smile, grab his tools, and head to the fields, pretending everything was fine. One warm evening, after a long day of planting rice under the hot sun, Harry's childhood friend, Sam, came to visit. Sam was different from Harry. He was loud, bold, and didn't care much about what others thought of him. Some villagers called him stubborn or selfish because he often did things his own way. Sam sat down next to Harry on a wooden bench outside his house. The crickets chirped in the distance, and the sky was turning soft shades of pink and orange. "Harry," Sam said, "you're always doing what everyone else wants. Don't you ever get tired of it? Don't you ever want to do something for yourself?" Harry sighed and looked down at his calloused hands. "If I don't do what they want, they'll be disappointed," he said quietly. "They might even get angry. I don't want to let anyone down. I want them to like me." Sam stared at him for a long moment, his eyes serious. Then he shook his head. "No, Harry, you're wrong. The real problem is letting yourself down. That's what's trapping you. You're living in a prison you built for yourself." Those words hit Harry like a sudden gust of wind. They echoed in his mind long after Sam left. That night, he lay awake, staring at the dark ceiling. Sam's voice kept repeating in his head, "You're letting yourself down." For the first time, Harry wondered if he was living his life the wrong way, not for others, but for himself. The thought scared him, but it also felt like a spark of truth, small but bright, lighting up the darkness inside him. The next morning, Harry made a brave choice. He decided to seek out the old wise man who lived at the edge of the forest. The villagers often spoke of this man, a Zen master who lived alone in a small hut. They said he had guided many people who felt lost or confused, helping them find their way. Harry's heart pounded as he walked through the shady forest, the leaves rustling under his feet. When he reached the master's hut, he stood in front of the simple wooden door, his hands trembling. He knocked softly, half hoping no one would answer. But the door creaked open, and the master stood there, his long white beard flowing and his eyes calm and kind. Without a word, he invited Harry inside. The hut was small and plain, with a single mat on the floor and a low wooden table. Harry sat down and poured out his heart. "Master," he said, his voice shaking, "I've spent my whole life trying to make others happy. I do everything they ask, my parents, my teachers, my neighbors, but I feel empty inside, like something's wrong with me. I don't know who I am anymore. Please, tell me what to do." The master listened quietly, his face still and gentle. When Harry finished, the master reached for an old clay jar on a shelf and handed it to him. "Take this to the river," he said in a soft but firm voice. "Fill it with water and bring it back to me." Harry was confused. Why would the master give him such a simple task? But he didn't argue. He took the jar and walked to the river, his bare feet sinking into the cool earth. At the river, Harry knelt down and dipped the jar into the clear, flowing water. He filled it to the brim, watching the sunlight dance on the surface. But as he carried the jar back to the hut, he noticed water dripping from it. There was a small crack on the side, so tiny he hadn't seen it before. With every step, more water leaked out. By the time he reached the master, the jar was nearly empty, with only a few drops left inside. Harry felt ashamed and bowed his head. "I'm sorry, master," he said. "The jar is broken. I couldn't keep the water inside." The master smiled, his eyes twinkling with understanding. "Exactly," he said. "This jar is like your life, Harry. You're trying to fill it with what everyone else wants. Their rules, their expectations, their dreams for you. But because you're not being true to yourself, your soul has cracks. The water leaks out, and no matter how hard you try, you'll never feel full until you put in what belongs to you." Harry's eyes widened. The master's words were simple, but they cut through the fog in his mind. For the first time, he saw his life clearly. "But what if I stop doing what others want?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Won't they think I'm selfish? Won't they stop caring about me?" The master placed a gentle hand on Harry's shoulder. His voice was steady and strong. "Tell me, Harry, what's worse, being called selfish by others or betraying yourself every single day?" Those words struck Harry like thunder. His chest tightened, and tears welled up in his eyes. He realized that for years he had been hiding who he truly was. He had buried his dreams, silenced his voice, and ignored his heart, all to win the approval of others. But in doing so, he had lost himself. The master's words were like a mirror, showing Harry the truth he had been too afraid to see. That night, Harry couldn't sleep. The master's question echoed in his mind. What's worse, being called selfish by others or betraying yourself every day? Under his bed was an old wooden box he hadn't touched in years. With shaking hands, he pulled it out and opened it. Inside was a small paintbrush and a few faded tubes of paint, his secret treasures from childhood. As a boy, he used to sneak away to paint pictures of the mountains, the rivers, and the stars. The colors made him feel alive, but he had stopped because everyone told him it was a waste of time. Under the soft glow of the moonlight streaming through his window, Harry dipped the brush into the paint and began to create. He painted the river he loved, its water sparkling like diamonds. He painted the mountains, tall and strong against the sky. He even painted the cracked jar the master had given him, its flaws glowing in the moonlight. With every stroke, tears fell down his cheeks. But something else happened too. His heart began to feel full. For hours he painted, and for the first time in years, the emptiness inside him started to fade. Days turned into weeks. Harry still worked in the rice fields, still helped his parents, and still cared for his neighbors. But he no longer hid his true self. Every evening, after his work was done, he painted. At first, he kept his paintings hidden, afraid of what people would say. But soon, word spread in the village. People started coming to his house, curious about the farmer who spent his evenings with a brush and colors. Some villagers laughed. "A farmer wasting time with paint? That's foolish," they said. Others whispered, "Harry's lost his mind. He should stick to planting rice." Their words stung like sharp thorns in his heart. But Harry remembered the master's question. What's worse, being called selfish by others or betraying yourself every day? He chose to keep painting, to keep being true to himself. Over time, something unexpected happened. The same villagers who had mocked him began to admire his work. Harry's paintings were beautiful, filled with the colors of the mountains, the rivers, and the spirit of the village. They weren't just pictures. They were pieces of his soul, poured onto the canvas for all to see. One day, a traveling merchant passing through the village saw Harry's art and was amazed. He offered to buy a few paintings to sell in nearby towns. Harry was hesitant, but he agreed, hoping his work might bring joy to others. Soon, word of Harry's paintings spread beyond the village. People from faraway towns came to see the young farmer who painted with so much heart. His paintings were displayed in markets, and some were even hung in homes and shops. But more importantly, Harry no longer felt empty. The hollow feeling that had weighed him down for years was gone, replaced by a sense of purpose and joy. He still worked in the fields and cared for his family and friends. But he was no longer a prisoner to their expectations. He was living for himself. And that made all the difference. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Harry sat outside his house with a group of village children. They gathered around him, their eyes wide with curiosity. He told them the story of the cracked jar. "If you live only to make others happy," he said, "your life will always feel empty, like a jar that can't hold water. But if you dare to follow your own dreams, your own truth, your jar will finally be full." The children listened closely, their faces glowing in the fading light. Some of the adults who had once laughed at Harry stood nearby, nodding quietly. They saw the wisdom in his words and the peace in his heart. Over the years, Harry's name became known not just in his village, but in towns far beyond. People didn't just remember him as a farmer or a painter. They remembered him as a man who showed them how to live bravely and truly. "Harry taught us something more than farming or painting," they said. "He taught us how to live for ourselves." His story spread, inspiring others to listen to their own hearts instead of following the expectations of others. The village, once so focused on rules and hard work, began to change. Children started singing their own songs, drawing their own pictures, and dreaming their own dreams. Adults, too, began to ask themselves, "What do I really want? What makes my heart feel full?" Years later, when Harry was older, people still told the story of the cracked jar. It became a lesson passed down through generations, a reminder that living for others can leave you empty, but living for your truth can make you whole. Harry's paintings hung in homes across the land, but his greatest gift was the courage he shared with the world. He showed everyone that a life lived honestly, filled with your own dreams, is a life worth living. And so, my friend, let Harry's story be a lesson for you. If you spend your whole life trying to please others, you'll lose the most important person of all, yourself. But if you dare to live your truth, you'll not only find your own happiness, you'll light the way for others to do the same. Harry's cracked jar became a symbol, not of failure, but of courage, the courage to fill your life with what truly matters to you.